there was some kind of a major disaster happening, like a flood, a heat wave, a cyclone, or a drought happening somewhere in the country here or there. So these events are becoming more frequent and intense because of climate change. And that's why it's so important for us to understand them better. Today's masterclass is all about helping you know what these extreme events are and why they are happening and what we can do about them. So don't worry, this isn't going to be a boring lecture. We've got lots of fun and activities and a game lined up to keep you engaged throughout. And but before we begin, just a quick note about the rules. So you'll be muted during the session to ensure that everyone can hear the speaker clearly. You can actively participate. The chat will be open. So if you have any questions or thoughts, you can send them directly to me. I'll make sure to bring them up to the speaker during our question and answer session, which will be at the end. So get ready to learn, ask questions, and most importantly, have fun. Let me introduce you to our expert speaker for the day. He's our very own climate guru, someone who knows all about weather patterns, climate data, and how it all connects. Please join me in welcoming Rajit Sengupta. Rajit is an associate editor of the Down to Earth magazine and has been associated with the Center for Science and Environment for over a decade. He does data crunching for the State of Environment Report, which is CSE's flagship publication. He's learned data from the Columbia University, USA, and is an alumni of the Delhi University as well. Rajit is a great storyteller, amazing at guitar, enjoys football, and loves cycling every day with his mountain bike and a road bike. Rajit, the stage is yours.
Thanks a lot, Anubhuti, for that lovely, lovely introduction. And thanks a lot to all my little friends for joining me after a long and tiring school day. So the first question that I want to understand is, how many of you have experienced extreme weather event, or at least are aware of what extreme weather events are? Can you just, with show of hands, say if you've been told about extreme weather events in classrooms, if you are aware of
Use
it?
the reactions button.
You can use the reaction button. I can see a lot of reactions. I think 2 hands have gone up. 3, 4. Lovely, lovely. So that's nice. Perfect. So let's get started. And what I'll do is I'll try to share my screen. And here it is. So as Anubhuti has told you all that I am Rajit Sengupta. So who am I and what do I do at CSE? So I work with a lot of numbers. And what I do is I look at extreme weather events. I look at climate change. I see how the world around us is changing rapidly. And I try to understand it through the use of data. So I look at how many days there have been extreme weather events. I see how many plants are there outside. I see how many animals are there outside. I try to understand how little kids like you struggle to go to school when there is a heat wave outside, or when it rains a lot, how much fun it is to play football outside. So basically, I'm looking at all of these things that are changing around us, and they're changing rapidly. And I try to understand it through numbers. So that is basically the background of me. My name is Rajat, and I have a young daughter. She's 7 years old, and she also, I think she's also here in the classroom right now. So with that background, I will talk about a concept called extreme weather event. So if you look at the term extreme weather, there are two words, and both of them mean something. The first is it has got weather, and the second, it has got extreme. So let's try to understand what these two terms are. I am confident many of you already know. I'm absolutely sure if I ask any one of you over here, you would have a broad idea of what weather is, because we are living here and we have talked about it. So weather is basically how it is outside your home at this given point in time. So it is specific to a time and a place. So basically, if I were to ask, what is the weather outside in my office? It is right now a little bit sunny, but it might rain a little while later because I can see clouds outside. Similarly, if I ask anybody over here, so if I ask Devan Chatterjee, did you see how was the weather outside when you were returning from your school? Devan, you can unmute and answer if you want to, or Devam, you can also do that, or anybody else. How is the weather outside right now? Any ideas? Is it sunny? Is it cold? Is it rainy?
I think the voice is cracking a little.
The voice is cracking a little.
Hmm.
Am I audible to everyone? मेरी आवाज सबको सुनाई दे रही है क्या?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it better now? Yeah. Perfect. I can see a lot of hands have gone up. आप में से कोई अनम्यूट करके बोलना चाहता है? आज का वेदर कैसा था जब आप स्कूल से वापस आ रहे थे?
People are saying humid, scorching.
Scorching and humid. Okay, lovely.
Scorching hot. Hmm.
So the beauty of weather is that it is something that is temporary. वो अभी का है. And it is also a space specific. So I'm confident कि आपका जो वेदर अभी बाहर होगा और मेरे ऑफिस के बाहर जो वेदर होगा वो स्लाइटली डिफरेंट हो सकता है. और अगर मैं इंडिया को छोड़ के किसी और देश में चला जाता हूँ तो बहुत ज्यादा अलग हो सकता है. So it is a time specific thing and it is a space specific thing. And let's look at what are the major triggers for weather. Why is the weather the way it is? Why is somebody feeling humid right now, or why is somebody feeling scorchingly hot right now? So there are three primary triggers. एक होता है कि टेम्परेचर. टेम्परेचर बहुत अगर बेसिक तरीके से सोचे तो कितना गर्म है या कितना ठंडा है, दैट इज द टेम्परेचर. जब गर्म होता है तो इट बहुत ज्यादा गर्म होता है तो इट कैन बिकम स्कॉचिंगली हॉट और इट कैन लीड टू अ हीट वेव. और अगर बहुत ठंडा है तो इट कैन लीड टू समथिंग कॉल्ड कोल्ड वेव, जो हमारे रात को होता है जब ठंडा पड़ जाता है, या फिर व्हेन वी आर सिटिंग इन माउंटेन्स इन दिसंबर विंटर सीजन एंड वहां पर बर्फ गिरने लगता है बिकॉज इट्स एक्सेसिवली कोल्ड ओवर देयर. द सेकंड ट्रिगर इज समथिंग कॉल्ड विंड. सो wind is the most basic thing why seasons change as well. Winds are basically, how do you put it, air that is constantly moving. So अगर wind बहुत ज्यादा तेज हो जाता है, then you have something called a cyclone or a tornado or a hurricane. These are different terms to signify a similar kind of an event. And अगर wind एकदम नहीं है तो फिर क्या होता है? फिर जो बाकी ट्रिगर्स है, जैसे कि अगर गर्मी बहुत है और विंड नहीं है तो हमें बहुत ज्यादा गर्मी लगती है. सो इट बेसिकली एम्प्लीफाइज द फीलिंग दैट द वे वी फील आउटसाइड. एंड तीसरा है प्रेसिपिटेशन. प्रेसिपिटेशन मतलब कितना बारिश हो रहा है या फिर स्नो कितना गिर रहा है. सो देयर आर टू काइंड्स ऑफ थिंग्स दैट कम अंडर प्रेसिपिटेशन. अगर हम लोग दिल्ली में रहते हैं, जैसे मैं दिल्ली में रहता हूँ, तो मेरे यहाँ पर प्रेसिपिटेशन सिर्फ एक ही तरीके का हो सकता है, बारिश. यहाँ पर बर्फ नहीं गिरता है. पर अगर आप बर्फीली जगह में जा रहे हैं, अगर किसी हिल स्टेशन में जा रहे हैं या किसी बहुत ठंडे वाली जगह में जा रहे हैं, देन इट इज ऑल्सो स्नोफॉल इनसाइड इट. तो अगर बहुत ज्यादा बारिश हो, और and what we are talking about is a weather right now, that means temporary है अभी के समय. तो it's like मैं बाथरूम में गया और एक बहुत बड़ा सा बाल्टी पूरा पानी मेरे ऊपर डाल दिया गया. So that is basically what happens when there is a flood. एकदम जल्दी बहुत सारा पानी मेरे पे गिर जाता है. As opposed to let's say when we are taking a shower, जब मैंने आराम से नल का खोला या फिर मैंने शावर खोला और धीरे धीरे पानी आ रहा है. So basically when it goes beyond the threshold, बहुत ज्यादा एक साथ हो जाता है और एक बहुत कम समय में होता है, then we have something called an extreme weather. Yeah, Anvi, you've raised your hand. आपका कोई प्रश्न है तो आप you can ask me.
Anvi, please tell us what's the question. You can unmute yourself.
I actually didn't have a question. I forgot to lower my hand.
It's all right.
That's okay.
Not a problem. Yeah. So moving on from there. So normally ये सब जो तीन चीजें हैं, टेम्परेचर, विंड और कितनी बारिश हो रही है, ये तीन चीजें मिलके हमारा वेदर को बताती है. तो हम जब बोलते हैं बहुत सनी है, बहुत हॉट है, बहुत कोल्ड है, बहुत विंडी है, ऑल ऑफ दीज आर बेसिकली द बेसिक यूनिट्स. इट्स लाइक द अल्फाबेट्स दैट मेक द लैंग्वेज. तो वर्ड को बनाना जो है वेदर, उसके अल्फाबेट्स क्या क्या है? टेम्परेचर, विंड और प्रेसिपिटेशन. नाउ ऑलवेज, like always means my father, my father's father, my father's father's father. हमेशा से जो वेदर है वो धीरे 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 चेंज होता है. जैसे एवरी डे में भी अगर हम देखें, सुबह का वेदर अलग होता है, दोपहर का वेदर अलग होता है, शाम का वेदर अलग होता है, रात का वेदर अलग होता है. बिकॉज द वे आवर प्लैनेट मूव्स अवे और कम्स क्लोज टू द सन, बिकॉज सन इज आवर प्राइमरी सोर्स ऑफ हीट एंड लाइट. अगर सन नहीं होगा तो हमें हमेशा लाइट ऑन रखना पड़ेगा. और अगर सन नहीं होगा तो हमें हमेशा हमेशा हीटर ऑन रखना पड़ेगा, बिकॉज ठंड ठंड लगेगा। सो सन के आसपास हम जैसे मूव करते हैं, बिकॉज इफ यू नो, अर्थ ऑल्सो रोटेट्स एंड सन स्टेशनरी है, एंड अर्थ सन के आसपास भी घूम रहा है। इट ऑल्सो रिवॉल्व्स अराउंड द सन, सो इट इज ऑल्सो स्पिनिंग लाइक अ बॉल, एंड इट इज ऑल्सो मूविंग अराउंड द सन इन इन सर्कल्स। तो उससे आपका डे एंड नाइट होता है, और उससे आपका वेदर वेदर चेंज होता है। तो समर्स, सो जनवरी, सो दिसंबर, जनवरी, फेब इज बेसिकली द विंटर सीजन, या नवंबर ऑनवर्ड शुरू होता है। फिर देयर इज अ मानसून सीजन, देन देयर इज अ विंटर मानसून एंड समर सीजन इन बीच में आता है। सो दैट इज बेसिकली हाउ इट वर्क्स। So now the problem is, and this is a big, big problem, the problem is the way things are changing. तो पहले जब होता था, धीरे धीरे होता था, we knew how the changes were going to be. In the recent past, when I say recent past, how many years am I talking about? Roughly around 100 years. 100 years back क्या हुआ कि ये जो चेंज होता है, कब ठंडी लग रही है, कब गर्मी लग रही है, कब बारिश हो रहा है, वो बहुत ज्यादा जल्दी होने लगा। And that is happening for a phenomenon called climate change. And climate change basically means, so weather is a temporary thing. अब अगर आप बहुत समय का वेदर को एक साथ करते रहो, लाइक 10 days का वेदर या 1 month का वेदर या 6 months का वेदर एक साथ आप कंबाइन करते रहो, सो इट बिकम्स अ क्लाइमेट ऑफ दैट एरिया। तो जैसे हम लोग कहते हैं कि यार दिसंबर में तो हमें हमेशा जैकेट की जरूरत पड़ती है दिल्ली में, बिकॉज ठंडा होता है। हाउ डू वी नो दिसंबर में ठंडा होता है? बिकॉज एवरी दिसंबर फॉर द पास्ट 30, 40, 50 years हमेशा ठंडा पड़ता है। तो वी कैन प्रिपेयर अकॉर्डिंगली। तो हमें पता है कि यार विंटर आ रहा है, तो वी शुड टेक आउट ब्लेजर्स, जैकेट्स, वी शुड टेक आउट वार्म थिंग्स। Similarly, if we have to move from Delhi, which is basically a comparatively hot area, to a mountain area, हमें क्या पता होता है? हमें पता होता है कि भाई वहां तो ठंड पड़ेगी, so we take extra blankets, we take extra warm clothes. Why do we do that? Because we know the climate over there. Climate is something that has been happening every time at that point of the year in that place. सो बेसिकली बहुत सारे वेदर्स को आप कंबाइन करते हो तो इट बिकम्स अ क्लाइमेट। तो दिल्ली में बहुत सालों से दिसंबर में ठंड पड़ती है, मार्च में गर्मी पड़ती है, जून जुलाई में बारिश होती है। तो जून जुलाई में हम लोग रेन कोट्स निकालते हैं। जून जुलाई में जब मैं बहुत छोटा था, आप लोगों की एज का था, तब मैं जून जुलाई में फुटबॉल खेलता था पानी में। मुझे बड़ा मजा आता था, बिकॉज आई न्यू दैट इज द टाइम दैट इट वुड रेन। बट उस समय मैं कभी भी स्विमिंग पूल में नहीं जाता था, बिकॉज आई नो इट वुड रेन, स्विमिंग पूल में जाऊंगा तो बीमार हो जाऊंगा। सो बेसिकली क्लाइमेट tells us how to prepare ourselves for the world, outside world. When we are moving out of our house, climate tells us कि कैसी तैयारी करनी है। The problem is, in the past 100 years or so, ये जो चेंज हो रहा है बहुत जल्दी जल्दी हो रहा है, और चेंज जो हो रहा है उसको किसी को पता ही नहीं। इट्स लाइक सिटिंग फॉर एन एग्जाम, यू डोंट इवन नो क्या पूछने वाले हैं उसमें। इंग्लिश का एग्जाम है या मैथ्स का एग्जाम है या फिजिक्स का या किसी और सब्जेक्ट का एग्जाम है, आपको पता ही नहीं है। आपको बोला गया है, अच्छा आप स्कूल आ गए, चलो आप एग्जाम के लिए बैठ जाओ। आप पूछोगे टीचर को क्या किसकी तैयारी करनी थी, वो तो बताना चाहिए, राइट? तो विद वेदर वी आर फेसिंग अ सिमिलर काइंड ऑफ क्राइसिस। वी डोंट नो व्हाट इज गोइंग टू हैपन नेक्स्ट। So it is a very weird kind of a situation, and it is happening because of a phenomenon called climate change. So what is climate change? मैं बहुत ही ब्रीफली आपको समझाने की कोशिश करता हूं। अगर समझ आए तो बताना, अगर ना समझ आए तो आप लोग जरूर पूछना। सो दिस इज, ये जो मेरा जो आपको स्क्रीन में दिख रहा है, ये हमारा अर्थ है। इसमें आपको थोड़ा बहुत माउंटेन्स भी दिखेगा, अगर आप इस सीनरी को देखेंगे थोड़ा बहुत लैंड भी दिखेगा, बहुत सारा पानी भी है, दीज आर ओशंस ओवर हियर and around us. So the beauty of Earth, as opposed to any other planet in the solar system or any other planet in the entire universe, is that we have something called an atmosphere. Atmosphere को कैसे हम लोग सोच सकते हैं? Atmosphere is like the Earth's clothes. It's like it is a safety covering that is around the Earth. जैसे हम लोग कपड़े पहनते हैं जब बाहर जाते हैं ताकि हमें परेशानी ना हो, सो दैट फिजिकली हमें ज्यादा ठंडा ना लगे, ज्यादा गर्मी ना लगे। इट्स लाइक अगर मैं डेजर्ट में बिना कपड़े के चले जाऊं तो थोड़ी देर के बाद मैं इतना पसीना आएगा कि आई विल कोलैप्स। सिमिलरली अगर मैं एकदम बर्फ के अंदर बिना कपड़े के बैठ जाऊं तो थोड़ी देर के बाद मेरे हाथ पैर सब पिघलने लगेंगे। सिमिलरली अर्थ के आसपास जो कपड़ा है, जो सेफ्टी मैकेनिज्म है, वो है एटमॉस्फेयर। एंड एटमॉस्फेयर इज बेसिकली सम टोटल ऑफ अ लॉट ऑफ गैसेस। एटमॉस्फेयर क्या होता है? गैसेस होता है। गैसेस होता है इसीलिए हमें आंखों से दिखता नहीं है। गैस इज समथिंग दैट वी नॉर्मली कांट सी। but it is this covering that saves us from the hardships or from the outside solar system. तो अब एटमॉस्फेयर कैसे काम करता है? बड़े अच्छे तरीके से काम करता है एटमॉस्फेयर। एग्जैक्टली कपड़े ऐसा होता है। तो हमारा अर्थ का जो प्राइमरी एनर्जी सोर्स है जिसके बारे में हमने बात किया है वो है सन। सन को अगर हटा दो हर जगह हमारे अर्थ के आसपास में से, तो हमारे पास ना लाइट होगा ना गर्मी होगी, एंड सब कुछ उल्टा पुल्टा हो जाएगा। सो अ वर्ल्ड विदाउट अ सन इज अ वेरी वियर्ड काइंड ऑफ अ सिचुएशन टू बी इन। नाउ व्हेन in the morning the sun rays come inside the earth, what happens is the atmosphere stops that heat from going out. तो गर्मी जो so what happens is in the evening we don't feel very cold because थोड़ा बहुत जो हीट है जो सन का आ रहा है वो ट्रैप हो जाता है. It's like a covering that traps the heat. So we need a little bit of heat for everyday life. We need a little bit of heat for the balance. So a little bit of heat is absolutely fine and it is absolutely important as well. The problem starts when the atmosphere starts to become it starts to trap too much of heat. It's basically like आप गर्मी में स्वेटर, जैकेट और उसके साथ एक बहुत ही मोटा सा कंबल लेके बाहर घूमने निकलोगे, तो आप क्या बोलोगे कि सर आप तो पागल हो गए हो, ऐसे कोई थोड़ी ना जाता है. But this is basically what we are doing with the atmosphere. We are making the atmosphere so thick and so difficult कि जो भी हीट अंदर आ रहा है वो अंदर ही रह जाता है. और जब अंदर रह जाता है, what are the things that are becoming unpredictable? I'll talk about it. एक तो होता है कि आपका टेम्परेचर बढ़ रहा है. So on an average जो हमारे दुनिया का जो टेम्परेचर है, जो 100 साल पहले, अगर आप में से हम में से कोई भी 100 साल पहले अगर हम लोग जन्म लिया होता हम लोगों ने, इफ यू वुड हैव बीन बोर्न मोर देन 100 years ago, द टेम्परेचर ऑन एन एवरेज इन एनी पार्ट ऑफ द वर्ल्ड करीबन 1.5 degrees कम होता. 1.5 degrees सुनने में बहुत कम लगता है, बट 1.5 degrees मेक्स अ मैसिव डिफरेंस. तो अब द अर्थ इन जनरल इज अराउंड 1.5 degrees वार्मर. 1.5 डिग्री के करीबन वार्मर है. इट्स लाइक हमेशा गर्म पानी से ही नहा रहे हैं, ठंड हो गर्म हो कुछ भी हो, हमेशा नलके में से गर्म पानी ही आता है. सो it is in general getting hot. Why is it getting hot? Because the sun rays that are coming in, they can't go out. Even after the sun has gone and it is night, there is a lot of heat that is inside us. So in general गर्म हो रहा है. अब गर्म होने से क्या क्या प्रॉब्लम्स आते हैं? बहुत सारे अजीब अजीब किस्म के प्रॉब्लम्स आते हैं. एक होता है कि जो हमारे माउंटेन्स है जिसमें बहुत सारा स्नो है, एंड दो स्नो, सो स्नो इज आवर प्राइमरी सोर्स ऑफ वाटर. स्नो जब पिघलता है उससे हमारी नदियां बनती है. अब जब गर्म हो गया तो लॉजिकली क्या होगा, जैसे आप बर्फ को अगर फ्रिज से निकाल के अपने हाथ में रखते हो तो क्या होता है, वो पिघलने लगता है. फ्रिज के अंदर नहीं पिघलता है बिकॉज वो ठंडा है. तो सिमिलरली हमारे बर्फ पिघलने लगे. अब जैसे ही हमारे बर्फ पिघलने लगे दो प्रॉब्लम हुआ. एक ये हो गया कि हमारे जो माउंटेन्स है उसमें बर्फ कम होने लगे. दैट इज वन पार्ट ऑफ द स्टोरी. द अदर पार्ट ऑफ द स्टोरी इज हमारे जो रिवर्स है उसमें इतने ज्यादा पानी आने लगे आउट ऑफ द ब्लू कि हमको पता ही नहीं उस पानी का करेंगे क्या. तो वो हमारे घरों के अंदर घुस रहा है, हमारे शहरों के अंदर घुस रहा है. सो इट इज लीडिंग टू फ्लड्स. सो ऑन द वन हैंड यू हैव वेरी लिटिल आइस लेफ्ट, ऑन द अदर हैंड यू हैव सो मच वाटर इन योर रिवर्स दैट देयर आर फ्लड्स. दिल्ली में जो होता है, अब हल्का सा भी बारिश होता है तो दिल्ली में बहुत सारी जगह में एकदम चौको ब्लॉक हो जाता है बिकॉज यमुना जो है वो फ्लो आउट करने लगता है. तीसरा जो प्रॉब्लम हो रहा है, एंड दिस इज अ वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग प्रॉब्लम, वो है कि अगर आप लोगों ने कभी सोचा है इसके बारे में, तो जो वाटर बॉडीज होते हैं वो हमेशा आइदर, सो अगर आपका लैंड टेम्परेचर जो है वो अगर बहुत गर्म है तो आपका वाटर बॉडी जो होता है वो कंपैरेटिवली ठंडा होता है. तो आपके ओशंस, रिवर्स, कभी भी अगर आप लोगों ने अगर किया है कभी, तो अगर आप स्विमिंग पूल में जाते हो दोपहर को तो आपका पानी ठंडा रहता है. सो what your oceans do is they take a lot of heat and they store it inside them. बिकॉज वो ठंडा होता है तो वो अपने अंदर स्टोर कर लेते हैं बहुत सारी हीट को. सो अभी भी वो वही कर रहे हैं. सो जब वो स्टोर कर रहे हैं हीट तो क्या होता है, जब भी कुछ गर्म होता है क्या होता है, वो चीज का बढ़ता रहता है. जैसे आप पानी को अगर उबालेंगे तो पानी एयर गैस बन के ऊपर चला जाता है. सिमिलरली जब गर्म पानी होता है तो इट स्टार्ट्स बॉइलिंग, एंड व्हेन इट स्टार्ट्स बॉइलिंग द लेवल ऑफ योर ओशंस आर गोइंग अप. तो इट्स लाइक पहले आपका लैंड यहाँ पर था और ओशन यहाँ पर था. अब धीरे धीरे करके ओशन का जो हाइट है वो बढ़ रहा है. अब जब यहां पर बढ़ गया है तो क्या होगा, ओशन का पानी भी लैंड में आ जाएगा. सो बेसिकली ऑल द सिटीज दैट आर क्लोज टू ओशंस, या फिर कोई आइलैंड जगह है जहां पर चारों तरफ सिर्फ ओशन ही ओशन है, वहां पर क्या हो रहा है, वो आइलैंड धीरे धीरे पानी के अंदर जा रहा है. सो इट इज श्रिंकिंग बिकॉज वाटर इज कमिंग इन, वाटर इज कमिंग इन, वाटर इज कमिंग इन. So that is another thing that is happening. And after all of these, how they impact us is basically they are making the earth, which is our only home. अर्थ के बियॉन्ड और कोई जगह नहीं है जहां पर ह्यूमंस रहते हैं. अर्थ के बियॉन्ड और कोई जगह नहीं है जहां पर हमारा फेवरेट पेट रहता है. आई हैव नॉट हर्ड कि डॉग मार्स में पाया गया है. आई हैव नॉट हर्ड कि डॉग किसी और प्लैनेट में पाया गया है. सो अर्थ इज आवर ओनली होम एंड वी आर मेकिंग आवर होम वेरी डिफिकल्ट टू लिव इन. What we are doing in the process is so if you might find it interesting, जब मैं आप लोगों की एज का था, मैंने एयर कंडीशनर के बारे में सुना ही नहीं था. आज के दिन में आप लोग बिना एयर कंडीशनिंग का दिन सोच नहीं सकते समर्स में. सो व्हेन आई वाज, एंड इट इज इन दैट जब मैं छोटा था तब गर्मी में हम लोग बैठे रहते थे बट फिर भी एयर कंडीशनर नहीं था. इट वाज बिकॉज द अर्थ इन जनरल वाज कूलर. तो हमें एसी की जरूरत ही नहीं पड़ती थी. हम लोग क्या करते थे, पंखा चलाते थे. अदरवाइज एक और चीज होता था, कूलर. कूलर इज नॉट और एज पावरफुल एज एन एसी. तो उससे हम लोग काम चलाते थे. अब हम सब एसीज यूज करते हैं. हम लोग गाड़ी में एसी यूज करते हैं, हम लोग घरों में एसी यूज करते हैं, हमारे स्कूल्स में एसी, बसेस में एसी. एवरीवेयर वी आर यूजिंग एसी बिकॉज द अर्थ, द टेम्परेचर दैट इज आउटसाइड इज हीटिंग अप. एंड द अदर प्रॉब्लम दैट वी आर सीइंग इज, पहले जो एसी यूज होते था, लेट्स से 1 month 2 month 3 month यूज करते थे. I can see Lehun Lemia, you've raised your hand. You want to ask a question? Luhen, you want to ask a question?
Hi, Luhan.
There's another person as well. कोई questions है तो
Would
आप
you like to ask a question?
Sir, what are those thick layer above the earth, sir?
yes,
Those orange lines.
yes,
The
that's the
orange
atmosphere. That is the atmosphere. That's like the invisible atmosphere that exists. And it is orangish towards the top because it's closer to the sun, so it is warmer.
Okay, sir.
Perfect. Any other question? Devam, you have a question you can ask? Okay, I'll move on then.
Yeah.
If you have any questions, you can unmute and you can ask as well. I'm perfectly fine with that. Perfect. So now, why is the atmosphere heating up, which was not happening when I was young, when your parents were young, or when your grandparents were young? तब इतना गर्म नहीं था. अब क्यों ऐसा बदल गया है जिसके लिए the earth is becoming more and more difficult to live in, and why is it heating up? So it is happening because of something called greenhouse gases. There are broadly 5 greenhouse gases. These are the gases which basically go and make the atmosphere, the yellow or the orange thing that you can see over here, उसको बनाने में, and उनका जो काम होता है, उनका दुनिया में एक ही काम होता है, वो गर्मी को ट्रैप करते हैं. They just stop the heat from going out. So वो जो ग्रीन हाउस गैसेस है, वो अब धीरे धीरे करके बढ़ रहा है. So what are those greenhouse gases? Let's look at them. First is called the carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is basically humans breathe in oxygen, and what do we exhale? We exhale carbon dioxide. At the same time, if you have studied in your class, plants, they take in carbon dioxide and they give out oxygen. That is the reason why they say you should have plants around you, you should keep forests intact. So they take in the carbon dioxide and they give out oxygen. Now, this is a very wonderful kind of a symbiotic thing. सब कुछ एकदम बढ़िया है. जितना कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड हम लोग निकाल रहे हैं उतने प्लांट्स ले रहे हैं, और जितना ऑक्सीजन वो लोग निकाल रहे हैं हम ले रहे हैं. That is a perfect. Yep. Tomthin, any question that you have? You can unmute and ask.
Tomthin, please also introduce yourself. Which class you're in, where you're from.
No, I think they've done it accidentally. I'll move on. I can't hear anybody, so I'll move on. So now everything is good.
It's me, Thompson. So, as you said, plants breathe in carbon dioxide. This is one of the most common mistakes said by adults. Every living being breathes in oxygen and takes out carbon dioxide.
Okay,
The carbon dioxide is used during the photosynthesis and is
absolutely.
exhaled out as oxygen after the photosynthesis.
Absolutely. You correct?
Yes.
Perfect. Yep, Thompson, you were bang on. So basically, plants use carbon dioxide to make their food, and then they give out oxygen. Perfect. So now there is enough carbon dioxide and enough oxygen, and everything was fine. But in the recent years, as and when we started industrializing, that means a lot of factories came up, a lot of cars came up. So when I was young, we did not have so many cars. Not every family had a car because it was not required. We would travel by trains, we would travel by bus, we would even cycle down long distances, which I try to do even now. But now everybody has a car. Now, what does car emit? It emits a lot of gases, including carbon dioxide. So carbon dioxide is also released when you burn coal and oil. Coal is the primary source for electricity that we have right now. We are trying to change it and we are trying to go to renewable sources. But bulk of the electricity that we see in our house, that electricity is generated using something called coal. Coal is basically burnt. And so in the past 100 years or so, we have been burning a lot of coal to make things, to make electricity, to industrialize, to develop. And that is the reason why, for the first time, we have too much carbon dioxide, more carbon dioxide than what plants need to make food, as rightfully pointed out, or is required in the earth. So what is happening as a result is carbon dioxide is going up, and it is now blocking more sun than it used to, or solar rays than it used to. So the solar rays that come inside the earth, it traps it from going out again. So that is one thing that happens. So carbon dioxide is one of the most or worst greenhouse gas. And it has gone up substantially in the past 100 years because of the way we have developed, because of the way we are using cars, we are using ACs, we are using electricity. Everything that we do is based on electricity, or most things that we do right now is based on electricity. And electricity, bulk of it is manufactured using the burning of coal and oil. Oil is basically directly what is used in our cars. Petrol, diesel, these are the things that are being used in our cars. So carbon dioxide is the biggest greenhouse gas, or in terms of volume, the most problematic greenhouse gas. Then we have another called methane. Methane also has another has a tendency of trapping gas. In fact, it traps more gas than carbon dioxide. But the biggest problem with carbon dioxide is that once it is emitted, so if you have released carbon dioxide, it goes into the atmosphere. It stays in the atmosphere for a lot of years. So it's like today, if you've emitted 1 unit of carbon dioxide, it will be there in the atmosphere for almost 100 years. So by the time, so if you are 5 years right now, by the time you turn 105 years, the carbon dioxide that you've emitted will be there in the atmosphere. Methane, as against or as opposed to that, it goes away very easily. So I think it's around a few months. So it doesn't stay there for so many years. So methane is the other. The primary source of methane is through agriculture and through the animal fart. So whenever the animal farts, that leads methane. Agriculture also leads to methane. However, methane compared to carbon dioxide, one is that methane is not emitted as much because the rate at which the world has become industrialized in the past 150 years is much more rapid than agriculture. And the second thing is methane also doesn't stay in the atmosphere for a very long time. So if you stop emitting methane today, let's say a few months down the line or 6 months down the line, the impact of that methane will go away, as opposed to carbon dioxide. If you stop carbon dioxide even today, for the next 100 years, the carbon dioxide that has been emitted before you will still be there and will continue to block the sun's heat that is coming into the earth. Uh, yeah, yeah. I can see a couple of hands have been raised. Any questions? Anything that you want to ask? You can unmute and ask.
Courage, please. Do you want to take a question? Do you want to present your question right now? Yeah. Okay, please introduce yourself. Tell us where you're from and go ahead.
Ma'am, I am Kajpreet Singh from class 7D from Delhi Public School. Ma'am, I want to ask, ma'am, why do we not make car of solar panels?
Okay. It's a very interesting question. So the reason why, so we are slowly and steadily making solar panels car, but the problem is that our entire economy, it's basically like since you were a child, you have been taught two languages, English and Hindi. Let's say tomorrow you get to know that there is a third language, which is a better language for the environment. Can you overnight learn that new language? Can everybody in around you, all kids learn that new language in one go? They can't. Similarly, solar power harnessing is a very new concept. When I was your age, nobody was talking about solar power. They were only talking about coal, 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 coal. So the entire ecosystem, the way the world runs, it is purely driven by two energy sources. One is coal and the other is oil or petrol. So now India is slowly and steadily progressing, but it will take a lot of time for us to adapt a solar economy or a wind economy for that matter, where everything comes out of solar or wind. So that takes a lot of time because we have to change something as basic as our existing cars don't run on solar. So basically, we'll have to change the engine. There are new engines that are coming up, but the problem with those engines is that if you have to travel from, let's say, 200 or 500 or 800 or 1,000 kilometers, you don't have planes which can run on solar. So if you want to travel from Delhi to, let's say, Dubai or US, you don't have any other mode other than oil because planes are not solar driven. So India and all other countries are slowly and steadily progressing towards solar and renewable, but then it is not very easy and it takes a lot of time because it's completely new as an idea, as a technology. So slowly and steadily we will be there. Hopefully by the time you grow, you guys are as old as I am, everything around us will be green and all of us will be using renewables. I will be very old then, but I will tell my grandchildren about it and you will tell your children about it. How at one point in time we were so stupid as humans that we only used coal and oil, but today, we are intelligent enough to use green technologies like solar and wind. Yep. Any other question? Yeah, I can see another hand again. Tomathin, you can unmute and ask the question if you want to.
Jonathan, are you there with us?
Okay.
Jonathan, you have your hand raised. So in case you have a question, you can either ask it right now or we can take it up at the end of the session.
Perfect. I'll move on. Then the other is water vapor. We don't think about it as a greenhouse gas, but water vapor also has a tendency of trapping heat. And if you look at it, all of these are very important. A life without carbon dioxide is unthinkable on Earth. It's like plants will not be able to make food. A life without methane is unthinkable because it's a natural process. A life without water vapor, it means there'll be no rain, no water, is also unthinkable. But the problem is that in the recent past, we have basically made it so much that we are facing problem. So that is basically where the problem is. All of these are very important and very much an integral part of our well-being. But too much of it, it's like too much of sweets make you fat. Similarly, too much of these things are making our climate very unreliable and very difficult. And finally, there is ozone. Ozone is also another greenhouse gas, but I'll not spend too much time. So ozone is important at the atmosphere layer. But when ozone is produced at a ground level, it works as a deterrent. It traps heat. So not all ozone is problematic. In fact, if you would have read in classrooms, ozone is important for us. It stops or blocks a lot of important or problematic things that come from the sun rays, like ultraviolet rays, which are bad for our skin and our life and our health. But when ozone is closer to the earth, which happens only when human beings are producing ozone, that is the time it becomes a problem. So these are the greenhouse gases. And there is also nitrous oxide. This is another greenhouse gas, which also comes from agriculture is the primary source for it. Fertilizers and all, they do it. Now, how is climate change affecting us? Yeah, Devam, I can see your hand is raised. Do you want to ask a question? You can quickly ask a question. Otherwise, I'll move on. Perfect. So, to help you understand how climate change is impacting us and how, if you remember, I talked about how everything around us is becoming unpredictable. It is not only making our outside world difficult in the sense it's too hot, it is too unpredictable. It is also impacting the way we eat and the way we live. So there are these two elephants in Kerala, and they were in news very recently, a couple of years back. One elephant's name is called Arikomban, the other elephant's name is called Chankumban, and they were good friends, and they used to live in the same forest. Now, what happened? Because of climate change, because of also the deforestation that is happening in general, because we want to take our forests away and make houses over there and make industries over there. What happened was Arikomban and Chankomban, these two elephants, they were not able to find food inside the forests anymore. So now Arikomban one day and Chankomban, both of them together decided to come outside to look for food because they were hungry. So when Arikomban came out, he could see rice. And he thought, rice looks interesting. Let me try and eat it. So he ate rice. Elephants normally don't eat rice, right? They eat sugarcane, they somewhat eat jackfruit, and they eat things that they get naturally in their forests. But Arikomban tasted rice for the first time in a house and fell in love with it. It's like when I had Chinese food for the first time, or I remember when I had my first burger for the first time, I fell in love with it. I was like, wow, what is the point of having rice and dal every day when you can have burgers as well? So Arikomban had rice for the first time, and he was like, this is wonderful. After that, every day he would go back to the forest, and whenever he would be hungry, he would come out and he would go into the houses of people. He would just take rice from the kitchen, eat it, and again go back. So similarly for Chankumban, he fell in love not with rice. He is also a friend of Arikomban. He fell in love with jackfruit. So he came to these farms and he saw farms where there were a lot of jackfruits. He fell in love with it. So both of them would come out. Chankumban would go into the farms and start eating jackfruit straight out of the trees. And Arikomban would go into houses and would rummage rice and start eating. And when the forest department tried to catch them, they actually had to put up a dummy rice shop inside the forest. So they created a rice shop inside the forest with a lot of rice inside it, hoping that Arikomban would come there, and then they caught hold of Arikomban and then they sent him away to another forest where there is normal food available. So if you look at it beyond just the way we live, it is also impacting the way we eat. I remember when the first time I had seen, I was in, I think in class 7 or 8, I had seen this one monkey, and the monkey started having ice creams. And I was like, monkey having ice cream? I always read that they only have bananas. And then I asked around and they said, no, ice creams is what they're getting easily and it is getting hotter. So they enjoy ice creams as well now. So basically, that is how it is impacting our food habits as well. It is not only impacting our house. So this is how it is impacting us. So let's look at the main extreme weather events, or the popular extreme weather events, or the most common extreme weather events, and let's try to understand what or how they're impacting us. So we've got heavy rainfalls and floods. That is the first extreme weather event that is there. It is the situation when there is too much rain that happens too quickly, and it also happens in a very brief period of time, and a lot of rain happens. So basically, you need a lot of rain, and you also need it to happen quickly, in the sense a couple of hours or 1 day or 2 days. So what it leads to two events. One is that it leads to landslides. Landslides are basically happen in mountainous regions. Basically, the big boulders, they become loose and they start falling. So the mountain starts to crumble, which is what happened in Wayanad recently. It is a hilly area. It is not a plain. So over there, it started to crumble. Or it also leads to floods, because your river or your water bodies, they have a specific capacity. So when it exceeds that capacity, it just moves in and it causes floods in the nearby areas. Can anybody tell me what is the first animal that is there or first insect that is there on the screen? If you can just type it out, that will also work.
Quickly.
Okay.
Okay, so children are responding as they're saying ladybird.
Ladybird, yep. So when there is a lot of rainfall and when there are landslides or floods, what happens to ladybird? Their home changes. How does it change? They get completely washed away. Just imagine a thought that today the house that you're staying in, tomorrow morning you get up and you are in a different house altogether. You don't even know where the house is or what house this is. This is the problem that small insects like ladybirds face when there are landslides and floods. They get washed away and they are in a new environment. They don't know where to look for food. They don't know how to roam around. They don't have their friends around them. So that is how it is impacting them. And it also has a direct impact on the food because they are in a new setting. So it is difficult for them to find it. Can anybody type out what is the second animal that is mentioned over there?
Rabbit.
Rabbit, perfect. So now in case of rabbits, we must have heard that rabbits make these burrows, these holes inside the ground. So what happens is when there is too much of rain, the burrows get all choked up. So again, their home is getting impacted by it because the burrows are getting completely choked up. The last, can anybody guess what bird this is? I'll be very surprised if you do. That basically means you really like birds.
Okay, so one person has said sparrow, Tanisha Kaura. Manasvi says canary.
Canary. Okay, I have no idea. I don't have the. Yep. Am I audible now? Was I audible before this? The burrows and all? Yeah, I was right. Huh? So now what happens to birds? Birds live in nests. Their eggs are there in nests. Those nests get washed away. So it's like losing out on their family members because of this. And that is a big, big problem. Similarly, if you don't have your home, then there are other problems that come along with it. Has anybody experienced a problem with heavy rains? So can we talk about how it impacts humans? One thing that happens, I know for babies, so my daughter, this monsoon season, her vacations were extended because of the rainfall that were happening. So this is how it is impacting you and I right now. So let's move on to the next extreme weather event that is there. It's heat wave and cold wave. And heat wave and cold wave is something that we know very well. Heat wave is when it is excessively hot, so hot that it can lead to diarrhea, it can lead to heat strokes, and you can just collapse if you're outside for a very long period of time. So can anybody tell me what is the first animal that is over there? Can you just type it out? The animal that is saying hi to us?
I think that's an easy option. Everybody says polar bear.
Perfect. Now, what is heat waves doing to polar bears? So polar bears, as we know already, they live in snow and they live in really cold places. But because of climate change, the snow cover is rapidly declining. So it is melting and it is melting and it is melting at a rate that their houses are, their cities in a way, if you think about it as a city where polar bears stay, it is shrinking. And it is rapidly shrinking and it is shrinking at a rate that it shouldn't happen. And as an impact of this, so first their houses are becoming smaller or their cities are becoming smaller in a way. Also, they eat fish. They love eating fish. But because of the heating up of the oceans, fishes are also going deeper in and are also moving away from the land. So they are basically going away from the polar bear. So they are also struggling to find food. So they have less food to eat, and also their houses or their cities or their environment, they are shrinking fast. So that is a problem that they're facing over and above the fact that it is hot and polar bears have a lot of fur. So it's like wearing a jacket in summers. So that problem obviously is there, but they are also struggling to have food and they are also struggling to have enough place to stay. Can anybody guess the second one? The second image over here.
Okay, we are swarmed with responses. Corals is the answer.
Yes, perfect. So coral reefs is also another thing that is happening, and this is purely happening. So coral reefs exist within our oceans, and these are so beautiful and so colorful and so lively, and a lot of microorganisms and a lot of fish and small fish and everything, they rely on coral reefs for their food and nutrition and survival. So what happens is coral reefs, when it becomes bigger, when the oceans are heating up, they go through a process called bleaching, which is basically when you boil something on a gas stove. So if you put something, if when you put Maggie on a gas stove from something that is very, so it boils up and it becomes mushy. So coral reefs are also bleaching and they're going white. That basically means they're dying. And if they die, because they provide home and they provide nutrition to a lot of other aquatic animals, including fish, they don't have enough to eat. So basically, it is having an impact on the food, and it is also having an impact on the homes of other organisms that depend on coral reefs. The last one I don't want to ask because I know all of you would guess it. It's a monkey. Similar problems with monkey, and specifically if there are extreme weather events or if there are their homes get affected, they come closer to cities. That is another thing that a lot of studies have found. So if their natural habitats are getting chopped, and we are building buildings and homes and offices over there, they are coming closer to us, and they are also exposed to everything that we are exposed to. They feel more hot, or if there's a cold wave, they feel excessively cold. They're struggling for food, so they're eating food that they ordinarily wouldn't. They eat eggs nowadays. They eat cooked food nowadays. They normally wouldn't do it earlier. Now, the third common extreme weather type is cyclones or hurricanes. These are basically very violent storm systems, and they usually come along with heavy rains. So the first one is obviously deer over here. And so I have used only a few animals over here. However, these impact all the animals like the way they impact human beings. So if you look at deer, it is increasingly seen that hurricanes and cyclones also cause a lot of damage in terms of the tree cover that gets lost. So not only does it mean that their food goes down, which are the trees and shrubs that they rely on, it also makes them more exposed to being eaten up by a lion or a tiger. Because it's like they don't have that cover anymore. So they are easily spotted and then they are easily killed. So they are making them excessively vulnerable. Similarly, for lions, if there are fewer amount of trees, so then that logically would mean that there'll be fewer amounts of herbivores around them, and that would logically mean that there'll be fewer amount of food for them. So they might get famished. Finally, turtles, the problem that turtles are now increasingly facing because of climate change and because of the heating up is basically they are struggling to give birth to new eggs and new turtles again. And that is a massive problem. So their population is actually declining because of this. So what are the things that we should do to prepare for extreme weather events? If it is heavy rainfall and floods, the first thing that we should do is we should listen to the warnings. So normally we get these warnings that, okay, it is going to rain tomorrow or the day after or the next week, and we should be very careful of it. Second is you should always prepare your home accordingly, in the sense that you should weatherproof your homes. You should not have windows that are broken. You should not have doors which are leaking. You should be prepared that way. The third is you should create a flood kit. So normally, if it is a heavy rain or urban floods, it is not prolonged. But if it is a massive flood, which basically like what has happened in Wayanad, which is basically a landslide that happened because of excessive rain that they received. So in Wayanad, the amount of rainfall they receive in an entire year, 6% of that rainfall they received in a couple of hours in the morning. As a result of that, for many days, everything was washed out. So you should keep a flood kit ready, which should have medicines, which should have food, which should have other basic things that you would require. You can think about it and you can keep them handy just in case. And you should also know the elevated areas of the locality. So basically, when flood happens, flood would be at a lower level. So if you know the elevated areas of your city, you can try going there. Then the risk of you getting washed out or getting damaged would be much less. So like in Delhi, places that are close to the Aravalli Hills, they are at a higher elevation than, let's say, places which are close to the Yamuna River. So if you look at so you would get flash floods in Yamuna River and the areas surrounding, like Mayur Vihar, Phase 1, and Akshardham. But you would never have heard a flash flood in the Aravallis, that is close to Faridabad, because it's a mountainous place. So it's at an elevation. So it's a good idea to know that. Then let's talk about cyclones. Cyclones, you should again listen to warnings. You should again prepare a home kit, and you should also prepare a home accordingly for any kind of cyclone warnings that are there around you. For heat waves, it is the most common in a city like Delhi. You should always drink a lot of water. So if you're hydrated, your body is better equipped to fight heat waves. You should stay at cool places, and you should be very careful of the early signs of heat illness or heat stroke. If you're feeling dizzy, if you're feeling too sweaty than usual, if you are not if your orientation or if you're not feeling all right, then you should immediately reach out to your parents or your school teacher or any adult who is around you, and you should tell them immediately so that you can take rest and can take medication accordingly. And for cold waves, it is very simple. You should dress warmly, you should stay indoors, and you should be always on the lookout for frostbite. Not that it is important in Delhi, but it is very, very important in mountain places. So now let's try to do a game time. If you have a computer, obviously you do have a computer. If you can open your Chrome, the basic question you might just ask is, all the information is important, and thank you for that, but how do I know there is an extreme weather event that is going to happen in my area? I can prepare for it because I know how to prepare for it. I can make a toolkit. I can wear clothes accordingly. I can do everything else. But how do I know that there is going to be an extreme weather event in my vicinity? So the easiest way to do is, if you open your internet, if you open your Chrome bar, and in your Chrome bar, if you write temperature now, and temperature is spelled out as TEMPERATURE, temperature now, and you just click on it, you'll get a screen like this that you can see on the left-hand side. Can all of you try doing that? And can you just type it? So at the bottom, you can see over here, there is something written as excessive heat. So this is how it is in the place where I am right now. I am in a place called Tughlakabad Institutional Area in New Delhi. And outside it is excessive heat is what it is saying right now. Can you check it out? And can you tell me what it is that it is showing in your area right now? If you can just type it out.
All right.
Excessive heat. Cloudy. Interesting. Reyansh, I would like to be where you are right now. It's a very good place to be. So this is how you get to know what kind of, so 33 is basically the temperature that you're getting right now. So if you look at it, let's have a quick look at the screen, and you can actually go and tell your parents that you know how to see the weather. So at the top, you can see the exact temperature that is there right now, 29 degrees Celsius. Degrees Celsius is the unit with which you measure temperature. It can also be looked at in Fahrenheit. 29, 30, 40 is really hot. And somewhere below 20 is nice. Somewhere below 10 is really cold. And somewhere below 1 or 0, it means that it is going to snow. So the smaller the number, the colder it is. The hotter the number, the more difficult it becomes. And if it is around 45, 48, 50, that basically means that you're sitting in a heat wave right now. So you should take all the precautions over there. So it tells you the current temperature. Then if you look at it, there are 3 tabs over here: temperature, precipitation, and wind. These are the 3 things that we learned decide what kind of weather is there outside. So you might have a very pleasant weather, but it might rain really bad in your locality. That means that it might lead to a flash flood, or it might lead to a landslide if you're in a hilly area. So you have to check not only the temperature, but also the precipitation and also the wind. So if you check all of these 3 things, and if you see at the bottom, it also gives you something called a forecast. It tells you what might happen tomorrow and the day after. So it basically is giving me forecast for different days: Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. For 1 week, it is telling me how is the weather going to be. Why is it only for 7 days? Because weather is a temporary thing. Climate is a long-term thing. So it is telling you for every day, and it is also telling you for all the hours in the day. If you see at the top for the current day, 10 a.m., 1 p.m., 4 p.m., 7 p.m. So 10 a.m. is basically the time when you're in school. 1 p.m. is more or less the time when you would be coming back from school. 4 p.m. is when you are basically preparing to go and play outside. 7 p.m. is when you're coming back home. And 10 p.m. is when you're preparing to go off to sleep. So basically, these are the time that are mentioned over there. So it will tell you what kind of situation is there outside, so you can prepare accordingly. And at the bottom, it is also giving me a warning in terms of excessive heat. That is basically how it is right now outside in my place. I'll end it over here.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Rajit. I think we had a great time. Children learned a lot about extreme weather today and they were engaged throughout. So, thank you so much for this wonderful session and teaching them so much and in such an interesting manner. That brings us to the end of our masterclass on extreme weather. Let us take a few questions now. I can see a couple of hands raised throughout. There is Ibad Khan, there is Luhan again, there is Shrishti, there is Shubham. Let me take Shrishti. Shrishti, please tell us which class you're in, which place are you from, and please ask your question. Shrishti Gothwal. Yeah. Hi, Shrishti. Which class are you in? Where are you? Quickly. Huh.
I'm in third.
We can't hear you.
Please go ahead, sister.
I'm from third C from Cambridge School.
Okay, that's beautiful.
And my
Yes, Shrishti, what's your question?
the question here.
It's okay. You note down your question, we'll come at the end. Okay. All right. Next question can be from Luhen or maybe Ritvik. Let's give Ritvik a chance to speak. Ritvik, please tell us where are you from, which class and school?
Miss, excuse me, ma'am. I am from class 5th, section B in the school of St. Joseph's School.
Okay.
I want to ask, I don't want to ask a question. I want to tell something.
Okay.
As sir said about polar bears are only mammals that have hairs on their soles.
Mm-hmm. What about
That's only my.
Thank you. Thanks a lot for the information. Thank you. I'll keep that in mind.
Okay. Let us have some more questions. Yeah, Devam, you're back. Please ask your question. And then we'll come back to Manashwi.
Hello, ma'am. I am from Punjab DPS school, from class 7th. Ma'am, my question is that why water weapon is important? That sir said it is important. Ma'am, I don't feel that it is important. Because of water, we need water weapon.
Okay. Yeah. So Devam, so how it works is that you must have learnt about the water cycle. Have you heard about the water cycle? The water cycle is basically how the water moves around. So there are water bodies on ground. Then when it heats up, the water goes up, and the water vapors actually go up, and then they form together and they make a cloud, and then they eventually, when it goes up, it becomes cooler. Like mountains, it becomes cooler when it goes up, and then it leads to rains. So if you don't have water vapor, that entire cycle would be disrupted. So whenever the oceans or any place heats up, the water vapors are the things that travel up, 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 and they eventually combine together to make the cloud. And if you don't have clouds, then you don't have rains. And if you don't have rains, then you don't have a rainy season. And if you don't have rainy season, then you can't really play in the rains. So that's the reason why it is important. Does it answer your question?
I think so. Let's take the next question from Renessa. Renessa, hi. Please introduce yourself and ask your question.
I'm from 3rd C Cambridge School, and my question is why we feel so hot in the traffic.
Why we feel so hot in the traffic? So there are 2-3 things. So whatever we talked about today is basically at a planet level. We are talking about a big area. However, when you are sitting in a traffic, you've got a lot of cars around you, and they are basically emitting hot air along with carbon dioxide and everything else. So locally, a lot of heat is there. It's like sitting in a room in summers without the fan and without the AC. You would feel a lot of heat around you. Similar kind of a trap happens when you are sitting in a traffic. Along with that, we also emit some form of heat from our body as well. So it's like a lot of people, a lot of cars, a lot of heat. All of them are there in the same place at the same time. Does that answer the question? Thank you.
All right. The next question. Okay, we have a few more fresh faces. So Artika Saha is there. Hi, Artika. Please introduce yourself and ask your query.
Hello, ma'am. Ma'am, this is Aratrika Shah from Aditya Academy School in Kolkata. Ma'am, I'm a class 12 student and I want to learn more about climate change and make it as my career. So,
Okay.
how do I go forward with it?
Yep. So it's a very long question. I would suggest you send an email to Anubhuti ma'am as well. We will take it up individually. But very briefly, what I have done journalism after 12th. After that, I went on to work with a lot of newspapers. And then from there on, I joined the organization, which is where I am right now. It's called Center for Science and Environment. And over here, while I was working, I did a lot of environmental courses along with it and a lot of data courses along with it so that I can do the job that I'm doing right now. But you can definitely email us and we can definitely help you out with. So climate change is a big umbrella idea. So there are people who work only on air pollution. There are people who work only on temperature, on climate negotiation, on extreme weather events like I work. So depending on what you're excited about, it's like I want to study more. Then I'll ask what kind of things that you want to study. So Akriti, so we can talk about it. What are the things that excite you? And then I can help you out with what to do, what kind of courses you can go in for. Thank you.
Sure, Artika. We look forward to your email. And meanwhile, let me take the last question of the day. Okay, last two questions. So Manaswi is here. Manaswi, hi. Please unmute yourself. Go ahead, ask your question. Introduce yourself also. Yeah, Manaswi.
Ma'am, my question is that are there any ways, any other ways to stop climate change?
Okay. So there are two things that you can do. One is that you can try to stop climate change. That basically means from now on, I will study every day. But what happens to the problem or the damage that has already happened? For that, you have to adapt. You have to prepare accordingly. So that basically means that you have to ensure that. So like one of the students had talked about how we should embrace green technology. So basically, renewables is a wonderful way of going about. Planting trees is a wonderful way of going about. But the impact of all of these will take a lot of time because the problem that you are facing right now, or the problem that we are facing right now, it is not because of what you and I have done right now. It is because what had happened 100 years back. So if we are good today, 100 years from now on, things would be very good. But for right now, what we will need to do is basically adapt accordingly. That basically means that we have to reduce our emissions substantially. Something is happening. Ramisha Singh has opened up the whiteboard. Yep. So we have to ensure that things are, so we prepare accordingly. So that the first thing that you need to know is that you have to reduce your emissions substantially. Use internet only when it is required. Use cars only when it is required. If you can, take the bus or any public transport, metro over cars. The third thing they normally say is avoid using anything that is bad for the environment. But all of these things will have an impact in the long run. It isn't that if you start doing it today, it will have an impact. That's the problem with climate. Climate is a long-term thing, 30, 40, 50 years. So you also have to ensure that you're not affected right now. That is the reason why you should know when it is really hot outside, you should stay indoors, you should have enough water. If there is anything else that is there, then you should prepare accordingly. That is basically what you should be very careful about, talking about extreme weather events.
All right, so let me take the last question of the day. And okay, Alec Gupta. Oh, there are a couple of more. Okay, so let us take a few questions very quickly. We are already we've shortly exceeded our time, but we can take a few more questions. So Alec Gupta, please be a little quick and ask your question. Also tell us where you're from.
Ma'am, I'm from Delhi and I'm in class 5C from Cambridge School, NFC. So my question is like why does the weather forecast say that it is 29 degrees Celsius and but feels like 39 or something?
Okay. So it is the same thing that somebody asked me, if we are stuck in traffic, why do you feel hotter than it actually is? So basically, whenever all of these satellite images or everything they're looking at, they look at the entire area together. However, locally, things are very different. So if you are in a forest, even if it is 30 degrees, it will feel cooler than 30 degrees on land. The temperature is taken not on the land temperature, it is taken the air temperature. So the difference between the air and the land, that is dependent on the kind of infrastructure that you're in. So in Delhi, if you've been in Delhi, so if you go to any of the major big parks that are there, if you go to Lodi Garden, which has a massive park and a lot of greenery, it will feel cooler than, let's say, if you go to a proper market area where there are a lot of people and only shops everywhere, because there is no greenery over there. So you don't have the shade, and the local temperature is slightly more. So it feels warmer than it actually is. It's similar to how if you've not prepared for an exam, it feels really bad and it feels more bad than it actually is. So similarly, so that is the reason why you should revise. So similarly, if you are in a cooler area, then you'll feel slightly better off. If it is a shaded area, if it has a lot of trees over there, similarly. So that's the reason why it is higher than it actually is. Does that answer the question? Thank you.
Meher, you're next. Please come up with your question. Tell us which class are you in?
I'm in Shivnada school, 4th grade. I actually didn't want to ask a question, but I wanted to say I am so thankful of this lesson because I keep saying, Papa, please turn off the AC या फिर eco mode में डाल दो, because he never does it. And then he's like, oh, 5 minute में क्या हो जाएगा, 5 minute बाद तो ठंड हो जाएगी. So I'm like, please eco mode में तो डाल दो. So I will tell them about this session. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot, Meher.
That's great to hear from you, Meher. Thank you so much. But before we close, I want to convey special thanks to a lot of teachers who have made this session possible today. I particularly want to thank Preeti Arun ma'am for spreading our message among the Cambridge School students. I particularly want to thank Ashu Rajram ma'am for promoting our event at the Shivnadar school. I especially want to thank KS Rai sir. In fact, I would take an opportunity to, if you are available and if you are listening to us right now, it would be great if you can, we get a chance to speak to your students. I think your entire class is watching us at the moment, and it's a great opportunity for us to connect. Further, I would like to thank Neerja ma'am also for personally attending this session, and for Pooja ma'am also, who has spread this message among her students. KS Rai sir, are you there? If you are there, please unmute yourself and please join us. It would be great to hear from you and your students. I had noticed a while back that the session was being telecasted to your entire class. I can't find you here. Oh. KS Rai sir, it would be great if you can switch on the video. I think
No,
are you there?
I think there might be an issue with it.
Oh, we would have loved to hear from children all the way from Sikkim. Extreme weather events over there must have been really different. But anyway, so I hope you all had a fantastic time and learned a lot. And before we wrap up, please subscribe to the Young Environmentalist website so you don't miss out on any updates about exciting events like this one. I hope you know which is the website I'm referring to. I'm putting a web link to the website right here in the chat strip. Please make sure that you click and visit our website. This is entirely for you. Also, don't forget to check out the latest edition of the Goba Times magazine. It's got a special story about pythons that you don't want to miss. So thank you so much for joining us today. Until our next event next month, take care and see you all soon. I will now unmute all of you, and you can say your thank yous and bye-byes until we meet next month with an exciting contest coming up.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, ma'am.
Bye.
Bye, ma'am.
Bye,
Sir. Bye, ma'am.
Bye.
Bye. Bye so much.
Yeah.
Bye, ma'am.
Unmute all.
Bye, ma'am.
Great.
Bye, sir.
Okay, bye-bye, everyone. Thank you for attending.
Good evening,
Thank you for
ma'am.
coming. See you next month with yet another session.
मैम मेरा एक क्वेश्चन था.
Oh, we have a question.
जी मैम जैसे इतना पॉल्यूशन होता जा रहा है मतलब गाड़ियों से एसी वगैरह से, तो ऐसा नहीं कोई मतलब फ्यूल आ सकता जिससे चीपर फ्यूल आ सकता सीएनजी की तरह, जिससे पॉल्यूशन बहुत कम हो जाए.
Sorry.
Ma'am.
मैम मैं कह रहा था कि जैसे इतना पॉल्यूशन बढ़ता जा रहा है आजकल पेट्रोल की वजह से, डीजल की वजह से
जी.
सर, तो ऐसा कोई मतलब सिस्टम ऐसा
मम्मी
कोई
बारिश हो रही है.
फ्यूल नहीं आ सकता कि जिससे टेक्नोलॉजी नहीं आ सकती सर, जिससे पॉल्यूशन कम हो करने की कोशिश करें, बढ़े ना वो. और
जी जी, इस साल हम लोगों ने दिल्ली सरकार ने काफी सारी चीजें किए थे. प्रॉब्लम ये है कि क्लाइमेट चेंज का जितने भी इम्पैक्ट है ना, पोल्यूशन का भी जो परेशानी है, वो सब सॉल्व होने में समय लगेगा. सो ऑड इवन एक बैंडेड सोल्यूशन था, वैसे और भी बैंडेड सोल्यूशंस आ रहे हैं. अभी हम लोग सीबीजी बोल के वो होता है, इसमें वेस्ट जो स्टबल बर्निंग है उसको कम करने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं. उससे हम लोग इलेक्ट्रिसिटी फ्यूल प्रोड्यूस करने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं. सीएनजी जैसा फ्यूल होता है. तो ऐसे और भी चीजें हो रही है, बट इन सब में इम्पैक्ट आने में समय लगेगा. जी
Sir,
जी.
I have a question.
यस.
तो बारिश होती है तो कैसे होती है?
बारिश जब होती है कैसे होती है?
Yes.
डिपेंड. हाँ जी. आई
Because
थिंक
I see
अभी
the rain.